Okay.
Tuberose.
All right. Thank you for joining the Bro Show. We have a guest today, Brian Zeleniak, who is the author of the software that we include with our sound tables that we market and use in our clinic. And we've been using this now for many years. How long has ProX been out? High
Oh, geez.
frequencies?
Well, it's been over 2 decades now.
Yeah. So
Yeah, been a long
we've
time.
been using it for quite a while. And remember back when I started to actually, I made my first sound table as an alternative way to listen to music. I've been a musician since I was a teenager, and I sold hi-fi at one time. I was a audio consultant and involved a lot in music early on. Then I did a electronics course, Bell and Howell home study course, and learned how to chase electrons around.
All right. Well,
And
that sounds we have a lot
yeah,
of common there.
so all these things kind of came together. I did a stint with Laserium. I did a laser light show in Los Angeles at the Griffith Park Observatory, and worked with photo imagery with sound. And so this all kind of came together. And I started learning about frequency medicine, and I studied about Rife. And some of the frequencies were, so these are uh, in the audible range. And I wonder if they would work on our sound table. The first version of this was pretty primitive, and it was really uncomfortable to lay on and everything. So I was using like pegboard with holes in it to lift the sound. I didn't realize you didn't need all of that, but it was interesting. And then we started getting wins with people in our clinic, and we go, "Wow, this is awesome!" And then I found your software made for dealing with sound, and I was like a cat with two tails. I was so excited, and it just it dovetailed perfectly with what we were doing.
Excellent.
So as your software evolved, um, or our use of it evolved, and God, it's just been great. So glad to have you on and find out more about how you developed this awesome software, and then leading up to the present, then what's coming in the future. So how did you uh, get into writing this kind of music software?
Well, actually, it wasn't music. It's a story about cancer, actually. I both my parents died of cancer, and like you, I was a geek. I did, I got into electronics and stuff when I was about 8. Did the radio thing and all that, and ended up later on getting my degrees in electronics design engineering and stuff. And
Oh,
with that, my wife at one time had cancer, and they were wheeling her into the recovery room. And 2 minutes later, after they wheeled her into the recovery room up at the Huntsman, I got a call from my brother saying my sister died of cancer.
mm,
So I had known about Rife and Rife frequencies since the 80s, so I had, started checking it out, resonant frequencies and all that. And of course, being an electronics geek, Tesla was something on the top of the scale too. So
mm-hmm.
actually started the whole resonant thing, and Rife just shrunk it down to the cell level and said, if you can resonate stuff, like I always use the analogy of a singer shattering a wine glass, same thing. You strip it down, you make it smaller, and everything has its own resonant frequency. Cancer cells, everything. So, well, that's what Rife did. He just shrunk it down and said, "Okay, well, if we can do this, what if we do it on cells?" And with all that stuff happening with me, I just decided, I had a good paying job as an aviation. Was doing FAA stuff. I was a chief inspector, so for part 1 through 4 repair stations, military and commercial stuff, 747s, all that stuff. And I gave it up, and I started doing this after that. All that happened. I said, I want back then a Rife machine. I mean, they were 30 grand, and they were primitive, and all these weird tubes. The oscillators were unstable, and
big old tower. Yeah,
it was crazy. And I said, I want to change it. I want. I don't. I didn't want people to go through what I saw other people go through, like my mom. She went through all that stuff in the 70s, and it was really primitive. It was terrible to see what they did with the radiation and chemotherapy stuff. And so I said, I'm going to change it. So I put it out. I did a lot of research, and I started writing software and to get rid of cancer and other things like that. Worked out well. And I ran into a doctor who was my friend for years, George Wilson, and he actually worked with Rife. And he passed away a few years ago, but he was up there in age. But him and I collaborated on a lot of things. So I had frequencies that nobody else had, that he had got from Rife himself. And that ended up in the software, and over time it just evolved from a basic Rife system into the whole life frequencies package. So, which covers like TBSW, which is my technology stands for trilateral balanced sine wave. It's for theta, low frequency healing, pain relief, things like this. One of the biggest problems with people who have other health problems is the stress, the pain. It slows recovery, things like that. So I added all that to the software. It became life frequencies. So that's what's been under development for all these years now.
So originally, I know Rife used a plasma tube, was it, to broadcast?
Plasma ray tube, same as like an old imagine an old TV tube. Yeah.
Was it a cathode ray tube?
I mean, that's what it was basically.
Cool. So, and that was broadcasting RF, right? That was the carrier.
Now, see, this is where people get confused. Now, in every TV or every old tube like that, there was a color burst crystal, which I think was about 3.1577 megahertz. This is where the RF comes into the picture, but it was actually audio frequencies modulated on that RF.
Yeah.
Because the RF frequency was required to make the tube actually work.
Right.
So, and then later, Bob Crane came along and said, well, let's get rid of the tube. Is that possible? And of course, it was because it was the audio frequencies, just like the opera singer shattering a glass that does the work.
Right.
And of course, the government got a hold of Robert Crane and confiscated all his stuff, and just like he did with they did with Rife. So,
so the tech went underground for decades.
Yeah,
we're using it covertly, right?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, and then it evolved.
It evolved, yeah. And there's been people. There's the CAFL, which is a consolidated annotated frequency list. Okay. And that's a big list of these frequencies that people have been working on in the background. A lot of these frequencies come from labs. People like Nina Silver, who wrote the Rife Handbook. Brian McInturff runs the site, Electroherbalism, which has all these frequencies on it. And a lot of them came from labs where they're actually doing this work today still.
Cool.
So behind the scenes, but it's there.
Yeah. So, yeah, then this just resurfaced at the new level of development. And now we have computers interfacing with it. And it's a lot different than back in the 30s. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was my intention. back then, back 2004, everybody had a computer,
Hmm.
pre phones, but at least the smartphones,
Right.
so yeah, it was the logical way to go to get it out to the public before it could be stopped.
And why did you choose to use sound versus like PEMF
Well, for the simple reason,
coupled to the body?
it's for the simple reason that sound is the original source. Okay.
In the beginning was the
Right.
word.
And what I use as an example, analogy of this is the opera singer sings and shatters a wine glass. Okay. You can't do that with a coil. That's a whole different type of thing. It's an electromagnetic field.
Right. If you hooked up electrodes to that glass, the same frequency, the same waveform, it's not going to break.
Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen.
You need that acoustic energy.
Right. So with coils, it's not going to do anything. Not that coils don't have their place. They do. They can create a magnetic field, and it can be very healing, but in a different way. To actually get rid of viruses, cancers, things like that, the best propagation is sound. Yeah.
So what I like about it also is we're also microscopists. We do live blood analysis,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been looking at all this nanotech in people's blood, the hydrogel and graphene oxide and all this stuff. And then you start reading the patents on it, and this stuff is self-assembling. It uses your devices to power itself to self-assemble. And so when you use PEMF, you're creating microcurrents in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And this stuff, that's what feeds this nanotech and makes it assemble into like circuitry in the body, where the sound doesn't do that. So I think it's much safer in that regard than holding on to electrodes or getting that microcurrent developed. So I was pleased to find this software.
Well, I mean, common sense tells you. It told me back then. All the old ripe machines, they had the handheld electrodes or the beam ray too. But listen, if you're holding two probes that's run electricity through them, what's in the middle? Your heart. That's not a safe way to go, really. So, common sense will tell you that. So this was also to avoid problems like that.
Mhm.
And a lot of people that were running the handheld, electrode stuff ended up having heart problems, SVT,
Hmm.
things like that. So
Really?
gets rid of that
Yeah.
problem. But sound is the natural and most powerful method of delivery for these kind of frequencies. So
For people that don't really understand a lot of electronics, can you just tell a little bit of the difference between how sound works and affects tissue or something as opposed to the coil?
sure. Well, everything in the world every little thing has its own resonant frequency. And this is stuff that Tesla figured out. Okay. And I think there's a story about soldiers walking across a bridge and the bridge collapsed because they were actually marching at the resonant frequency of the bridge. Okay. And so that's where sound and resonance comes in. Okay. So, and I go back to the analogy, but when I released the software, the first software, a couple decades ago, I use that analogy of the singer shattered a wine glass. Okay. Simply stated, if you take that wine glass and make it smaller, it's going to be a higher frequency that'll shatter it, right? So, boom, it's going to be a higher frequency, but it will still shatter because the little wine glass is going to have a resonant frequency, but it's going to be different than the big wine glass, the different frequency. So this is the point where everything has its own resonant frequency. Now we're composed of nothing but energy and frequencies. As you sit there and I sit here, all we are is energy and frequency. That's it. Okay. But every cell we have has a different frequency. Like a cancer cell has a frequency of 2,128 hertz. Okay. But a cell sitting next to it will not have that same frequency. So with sound, you can get in, resonate the cancer, the bad cells, without damaging or harming the good cells. Okay. And as far as PEMF, okay, now this talk about coils.
Mm-hmm.
There's a magnetic field generated by coils. So when you actually put an electrical signal in the coil, it generates a magnetic field just like headphones, or but the magnetic field surrounds the coil. Okay, so you get the frequencies coming through the coil, but not the same way as sound. Now these frequencies through a PEMF coil or whatever, they can help you with recovery because of the frequencies. Okay, your body is absorbing them because you, like I said, we're made of energy, but it will not do a destructive processing. Otherwise, the PEMF coil will not kill a cancer cell. It can't do it. I hope that helps, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. So the sound will resonate it differently than the electromagnetic signal would.
Right. The coil is an electromagnetic field where the sound is direct. It's something that our body is accustomed to. We're not accustomed to electricity, handheld probes,
Mm-hmm.
coils, or we're bombarded by magnetic fields constantly. We have our cell phones and things like that. A lot of people say, well, wait a minute, we're doing RF frequencies to get rid of this problem, blah, blah, blah. These are bad people because we know through cell phones, when cell phones came out, we had to do studies and say, wait a minute, this RF frequency is damaging people. It's hurting people's brains. And in fact, Robert, I watched one of your videos when you were doing some applied kinesiology, muscle testing. And I think you ran a phone over somebody, and all of a sudden they tested low energy.
Right.
This is what happens. We've done experiments and a lot of research on what RF does to the human body, and it's not good in any case.
It downregulates the mitochondria. You don't have any energy then. Right.
Exactly. So sound is natural. We are inherently built and wired internally to be receptive to sound.
Our DNA functions with light and sound.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So it's cool. And then we're basically a big bag of water, and sound
about
travels.
95%. We're all water. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sound travels through water 5 times faster than through air. So once you couple it to the body, it'll go everywhere quickly and through the body.
Absolutely. And air, and that's how whales communicate, through long distances. And so it's the perfect medium.
Yeah. What are these healing frequencies? Is there a pattern to them? Which ones work well and ones that don't work as well? Is there any pattern to that?
Like, how come some affect like a liver and some can affect the brain and some can affect killing parasites? Maybe explain that a little bit for people.
Oh, okay. Well, I just did in a sense.
A little bit, yeah. Just maybe
everything has its resonant frequency.
Right.
So liver cells are going to have their own frequency. A parasite's going to have its own frequency. Now, if you go to, my website for life frequencies or whatever, you'll see a video of the frequencies destroying paramecium. And there's other things in that video that aren't being affected at all because they don't have the resonant frequency. So if I direct frequencies toward your liver, okay, it's only going to affect those cells because your liver cells have their own resonant frequency.
Cool.
And it's funny how this came about. There was a a factory that got put in next to a chicken farm. This was, I think, in uh, Iowa. And after the factory started up, all the chickens died. And this was a big chicken farm. You know, it was one of the top ones.
Mhm.
So they had the money to hire these researchers and go, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why are all these chickens dying? And it was after this factory opened up. Well, it turned out after all the research that the factory was putting out 7 hertz, and it happened to be the resonant frequency of a chicken's brain cavity.
Wow.
So they all the chickens were dying, and the guy, the farmer, he didn't know what was going on initially. He was going, wait, all my chickens died after his factory started, but he didn't put 2 and 2 together. And he got more chickens. He thought, well, maybe it was some kind of other thing. But his next chickens died, and then they started doing the research.
Wow.
Wonder how they figured out that it was that.
Well, there was very few variables for a scientist. You know, I mean, that's one of the first things as a scientist I would look at. I would say, well, wait a minute. When the factory started up, the chickens died. So, what is the factory doing
Right.
that's not physically connected to the chickens? Well, in my mind, the first thing I would think would be sound. I mean, there has to be something, some sort of resonance or something like that that's happening. So I imagine, you know, with the people they hired, they didn't take them long to figure that out. So
Mm-hmm. And that's just a little more than Schumann resonance.
right.
But
7.83.
it's close, but
7.83, right?
yeah.
So,
So you got to be right on.
right on. Well, even, you know, even as the, you know, fraction, you know, will definitely make a difference. If you try to hit a cancer cell with 2129, you know, 1 hertz off, it's not going to destroy the cancer cell because it's not the resonant frequency.
Right. It's not going to
But
break the glass.
it is right. It's not going to break the glass, which is good because see, that's how the frequencies get rid of the bad stuff without harming you or get, you know, touching the good stuff.
Right. Like kind of
So
like
how is
chlorine
that?
dioxide, you know, chlorine dioxide kills pathogens and you know, uses oxygen and electrons both
Mhm.
to do that. And uh, so I don't know if you can see the correlation there, but
Sure.
yeah.
So how do they really find those out? You said a lot of people are still working on these things. How do you, you know, like the original Rife worked when he had the frequency and then the microscope, but how is that, how do we do that now? And how do we look at, you know, things that like can't be, you know, killed, for instance, just, you know, like we
Well,
have,
just like when we test for, you know, when you go in and test for a virus, Rife had the only microscope to this day that could actually see a virus. They have not been able to reproduce his microscope to this day. And the reason his microscope was so wonderful is now we can see, you know, the small things as the viruses and things that Rife was able to see. But Rife, he could see them live. He could see the cells live. He could see the viruses live. But now, in this time, we actually have to use an electron microscope. But anything that goes in an electron microscope dies instantly. So we can't look at it live and go, oh, wait, here, this frequency is making this thing die, or, you know, it's going to be the cancer cell frequency. But the way we have to do it now is a little bit more difficult, but you can find frequencies through the same methods, through microscopes and things like that, but actually do the test like you would test for a virus. So you can run a frequency. Did it destroy the virus? Well, you have to go through an actual test to do that. The same way we could test for viruses. That's the simple way to put it.
or how about like a poison? Something you, again, you don't kill. How do you eliminate like, you know, cyanide poisoning or,
It's a poison has its own frequency.
okay, but how do you identify something like that? It's not going to die. You don't see it being killed, you know, and so that kind of like,
Well, you know, poison is going to be some sort of bacteria. It's going to be visible. In fact, poisons and toxins I have a microscope here. I can see all those, and it's bacteria and things like that. Those are easy to see. Still, I can see those, here in my lab. So
Mhm.
there's people out there that are doing this research that have much more powerful stuff than even I do, and that's where George, my doctor friend, he he had access to the labs, the hospital labs, things like that. And now, even with AI can be used for good or bad, and AI already knows a lot of these frequencies, and it can actually calculate the frequencies and
Mhm.
say, okay, well, here's a bacteria, and it can calculate, say, okay, well, this bacteria has this dimension, this dimension. It can go out there and calculate it. In fact, with the new life frequencies Pro 10, it
Mhm.
does the diagnostics through AI, and it'll not only tell you what you have as a problem, but it will also tell you the possible parasites that might be causing the problem, because parasites a lot of the time are underlying issues for other problems you might have. Like you might have recurring symptoms of a flu or something, and it's like, oh wow, I'm always sick. So you might get rid of it and it'll come back. Well, it's not that you have the flu; it's like you have parasites that are causing you to feel like you have the flu. So it's always getting to the source of the problem. And that's where your kinesiology comes in too. And you'll know in Pro X8, the K test, that's what that's for. You can
Mhm.
actually muscle test somebody quickly just by going from preset to preset without having to set a timer and wait till one runs out for 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And
Okay.
that's where K test comes in. So you can also, with the sweep generator, your body knows a great deal. I mean, it knows more than anybody else about what's wrong with it. And that's why I was really fascinated about your video that you did with the muscle testing.
Hmm.
You can absolutely use that to pinpoint frequencies for good or bad. So,
On the topic of microscopy, I just wanted to share that they have laws in place. You can't buy a microscope over 2400x magnification.
that's right.
In Rife's, the resolution, the magnification on his was several thousands of x.
60,000.
Pardon?
60,000.
60K? Wow. And he used quartz lenses, not glass.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. He was a genius. Absolutely.
And then
And
he was able to stain the specimens with prismatic light instead
mhm.
of chemical stains, which kills the specimen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, to this day, like I said, they have not been able to reproduce what he did,
Hmm.
and that's amazing because he did it in the 30s. And
Yeah.
like everything else, a lot of stuff gets swept under the rug.
That was a
So
powerful decade. There was a lot of stuff came
Sure
through
was.
at that time. Tesla, um, Weston Price, and Francis Pottinger, all those experiments they were doing. There was a lot of truth coming through at that time.
absolutely.
Uh,
Well, cars that ran on water, and of course, the government buys these patents out, and or
Warehouses.
they don't get sold out, they just disappear. Well, guess what happened? What happened to Fred, Sweet, the guy that developed the little energy thing, that could power a whole city, and the thing was a little bit bigger than a cigarette pack. What
mhm.
happened to him? It's like, who knows?
On a shelf somewhere.
Yeah, well, he ended up going to lunch with somebody, and died of a heart attack, I think, at lunch. After he met these two people from the government or something. It was crazy. But
CIA ice bullet or something.
yeah, but all this stuff, the free energy stuff, and Tesla had it all down. Uh, the scalar waves, which they create, free energy,
Can you
zero
explain
point
about
zero point energy.
Can you explain about scalar waves for people? Because people don't really understand what that is.
Yeah, well, I can try to make it easy. Uh, energy can never just disappear. Okay. We can't just go, oh, that energy is generated. It can't disappear. But that's a standard law of physics. Okay. No matter what be type of physics it is. So if energy cannot disappear, then what is scalar waves do is they're equal and opposite waveforms, okay? But they're exactly the same. So if you were to look on an oscilloscope, you'd see one sine wave. It might go like this, okay? And there'd be another exactly the opposite, so they're exactly the same amplitude, but they're the opposite waveform. But they supposedly cancel each other out, okay? This is what a scalar wave is. Well,
like noise canceling headphones.
right, right. So, but when you run scalar waves through a coil or whatever, the energy, if you do it through a speaker, let me put it this way, it makes it easier because we're talking about sound anyway. So if you run scalar waves through a mono speaker, you won't hear anything. Okay. Well, what's going on? If you're running Pro 10 or whatever, you'll actually see that there's frequencies running, but you won't hear anything. So where did that energy go? That energy is your 0 point energy. Okay.
Quantum field range.
These waveforms cancel each other out, but energy can't be canceled. There's no way you can cancel energy. And as you know, in electronics, energy can only be converted, So if you have a voltage or a current running through some sort of power running through a resistor, okay, the energy is converted to heat. Okay. Some way or another, it gets converted. So if you're running it, voltage at a pulse voltage through a coil, it gets converted to a magnetic field. Okay. And this magnetic field can have eddy currents and different things about it, but it gets converted. So, in a good sense, it's a good sense, our brains are like a 40-watt light bulb. That's how much energy our brains carry around, so.
A lot of mitochondria.
Yeah. So in a nice way, when we die, we know that energy can't just disappear. So our energy can't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. So that's very reassuring in itself.
Cool. So that scalar wave that scalar wave energy doesn't travel down wires. It's not a linear kind of flow like electromagnetic energy, but it's in a field, right?
Mm-hmm.
The field is part of the quantum field.
Well, now here's where things get interesting. You can run scalar wave wire or scalar waves through a coil through wires. Tesla did this. I think some of your free energy guys did it. The guys that were their stuff was swept under, like Sweet, Fred Sweet. I think a lot of that stuff was swept under the rug. That was scalar wave 0 point energy. Where his coils, he ran certain voltages through coils. Now, I have some ideas of my own. I have done free energy myself, and I did, of course, publish it because I didn't want to disappear or have
black helicopters flying.
Right. So it's easily done. It can be done, and that's scalar waves are what does it. So I actually put the first computer scalar waves together, the first algorithms together for that in about 2004. I did it for my TBSW technology, which is the theta healing stuff.
You were a trailblazer.
Well.
So when do you recommend people use scalar wave versus not use scalar waves?
Well, as I said, scalar waves are experimental. Okay. So There are people that like to do remote healing, believe in remote healing. Now we're getting into a whole different area of physics, and that's quantum physics. Okay.
Mhm.
And people that do remote healing, uh, the point behind it is we're all connected, which we are. You know, you and I are connected in different ways right now, even though we're, across the country from each other, but
Right.
we are connected in the quantum world.
Mhm.
We are energy beings. Okay. So the whole point with scalar waves is to get to that 0 point energy place. So when you're doing remote healing, that's when you might want to run scalar waves. Okay.
Is that
Because
what people did with
Radionics.
radionics? Is that what that kind of is
yes,
like?
absolutely. They enter the quantum world. They use what they call a witness. Okay. Like they'll put a hair or a picture of somebody between headphones, and then they'll run the frequencies. And with scalar waves, that puts them in the 0 point energy field, or another way to say it, the quantum field. That energy between us right now is connected. And this is proven in quantum physics in several ways, where it actually blew Einstein's mind that, when he met Max Planck, he's going, wait a minute, speed of light doesn't matter. So my speed of light thing here is wrong. It drove Einstein nuts last 9 years of his life, because through quantum theory and testing, they had two different photons could be at a different end of the universe, and they would be actually connected and working the same way,
Wow.
rotating the same exact way. So, if you want to get into quantum physics, it gets pretty complex, but, I'm talking Schrodinger's cat stuff and all that's very interesting, very fun, but be prepared to, get a couple headaches when you start going down that road.
Well, I use the scalar waves all the time on the light frequency software,
Mhm.
and I get a lot of wins with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's experimental. I don't say when to use it and when not to use it, but it's in there for people to experiment with. Now, I had it in my TBSW originally, uh, and it wasn't in the right frequencies until Pro X8. So the original TBSW, I put it in there because a lot of people were using TBSW for meditation,
Hmm.
mind experiments, things like that. Even though TBSW is pure frequencies, unlike, it balances both parts of the brain, just like the hemisync does, but there's no subliminal things. TBSW is pure frequency, so there's none of that.
And it creates the beat frequency that trains your brain waves into more beneficial patterns.
Exactly.
Okay.
But a lot of people are using TBSW to meditate, so I put the option of scalar waves in that for them at their own risk.
Mhm. I had we had a patient a couple decades ago who was from Virginia, and she was in a really bad car accident. And she was a model, and she lost her face, just really messed her up bad. And they airlifted her to a facial reconstruction hospital, just happened to be there. And she was getting all these reconstructive surgeries and going under anesthesia. Someone turned her on to the Monroe Institute's pain reduction tapes, cassette tapes back then.
Right.
She started wearing them and getting relief of the pain. So she asked the anesthesiologist, can I try this during the surgery instead of anesthesia? He said, well, sure, I'll be on standby, but we'll try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll use the anesthesia. So she went through the whole surgery, no anesthesia. And then Monroe Institute, they did a whole
Expose.
documentary on that. They brought a film crew into the OR and everything. That's where I first learned about
I know.
they call it binaural beat, the TBSW effect, and that really impressed me a lot. So
Right. Well, TBSW is similar to binaural beats, except it actually syncs both sides of your brain in the same pattern. So if it's alpha, it's, most of our time, our waking lives, one side of our brain is going to be at a different frequency range than another. Like one side of your brain might be working at theta right now, and the other is at an alpha. Okay. So we're never really synced. We're always constantly changing. But with TBSW, it actually syncs both of them together. So whatever frequencies you're running, they're going to be more effective.
Oh, that's a good
It's
point.
more of a whole brained effect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Can you explain some of the other parts of your software? Some of the, other parts of it, like the solfeggio or the ancient tones?
Well, ancient tones, they're frequencies that have been around for, thousands of years in some cases. And they've been used for healing. A lot of the frequencies came from the monks, Tibetan monks, that they used to heal through chanting certain frequencies.
Right.
Or, interesting thing about that is they also used to be able to levitate objects.
I was just thinking about that. You're saying that.
So these frequencies have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't really necessarily want to say solfeggio frequencies. There's the whole tuning thing, and I'm sure as musicians, the whole thing about the Rockefellers changing the tuning standard to 440 as opposed to before it was 432. France said, no, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to change it. So 440 as a standard tuning is very disruptive to the mind. It's very chaotic. If and you can feel it in music if you detune to 432, there's the effect is amazing. At 432, the frequencies, the music just becomes more pleasant, more relaxing, and more musical in some sense. So,
we've done that with we tuned to 444, and that makes C 528.
Oh yeah.
And when you tune that way, you don't get tired. You can just keep playing and playing.
Well, anything off of 440 is
Disruptive.
It's a plus. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, they just attacked us on all kinds of levels, didn't they?
Every level, right?
That was, I think, one of the Nazis.
Yeah, that's right. It was Rockefellers that actually wanted to change the tuning thing, and all to disrupt humanity. It's for control or whatever.
Yeah.
But going back to that, as far as the frequencies in the healing tones, ancient tones, I just named them ancient tones because they fit. They've been around for a long time, and I think aside from the guy that saw the Tibetan monks lift the huge 6-ton stones with sound, that's once again, that's the power of frequencies. And I think the guy from the Coral Castle did the same thing in the pyramids, which were actually built 120,000 years ago, not by the Egyptians. They found them, but they were probably done with the same kind of technology.
How about Gabriel? The horns, they're knocking down.
Sure. Well, there you go. That's another testament to the whole thing. But if you look at it, sound was the first thing. If you look at the Bible and said, well, when God says, let there be light. Now that same intention and that same text goes back to the Sumerians. It goes back. There was a Noah figure in this, Sumerian, texts that were way before that. So It all goes back to sound. Now, the powerful thing about sound, once again, is when you look at video or sacred geometry, okay, those are patterns, but those patterns are created by sound. Now, in your background, there's kind of a sacred geometry type of a thing. But if you take a piece of paper, take regular black, paper, the kind of get done wherever
paper or something.
Construction paper. Put a speaker on it, put some salt on it, and then run frequencies through. You'll see all of the sacred geometry patterns on the paper through sound. Okay, so sound is the original source of all of it.
We've done that with on our sound table. We take a metal cookie sheet
Cookie
with
sheet, yeah.
with walls on it, little sides. Put water in it and put it on there and play, and you could see the cymatic patterns in the water.
Right.
And that's what it does to us because we're water basically
Mm-hmm.
in a gelled state. But it creates those cymatic patterns, those symmetrical, sacred geometric patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think those solfeggio or those ancient tones are the standing waves of nature that create our world as we know it, including us.
Absolutely. Like I said before, we're nothing but energy and frequency. So
Temporarily crystallized light,
right.
which
So,
is sound.
so this goes back to when I put the structuring in live frequencies to make your own remedies. This is the same thing. We are mostly made up of water, but we can actually, water is very receptive to sounds. And there was a Japanese doctor, uh, Emoto was his name. He did all these structuring things, and he would run prayers and chants on things, and he on water, and then he would freeze them, and he could look at them under a microscope. So water can be structured with frequencies. Now, if you do that, you can take a preset in Pro X8, transfer it over to manual, and run structuring. And if you put the headphones on a glass or some sort of speaker next to a glass, whatever, that water is going to assimilate those frequencies. And when you do that, those frequencies, if you drink the liquid, it's going to get those frequencies are going to get in your body.
Right.
Or they're going to retain in oil or whatever. So that's where that comes in. And then the chakra part of it, chakras are another thing that have been around for, thousands of years. And it's, once again, it's frequencies and patterns, but the frequencies are sound frequencies. And back when the iPhone 1 came out, I had two apps, the original apps. I think there was only 10,000 apps out on the App Store back then. Now there's a billion or something. But some of the first apps I did two of them. One was Chakras, and it's still out there, Chakra Pro for the iPhone, and then Painkiller too. And they're both still 5-star apps. And the pain frequencies that I found for that, I actually found by accident. Just mess around with different frequencies in my studio. I started getting numb. I'm like, wow, what's going on? I was running this background frequency at 111 hertz. And I go, wow, this is really interesting. So I put it in TBSW with a couple of other frequencies that were low frequencies were known for, pain relief.
As a preset, you put it
as a preset. I turned it into a preset. And I had George look at it in the labs. Wow, how did I find this frequency? And the way it works is, people maybe got in a car wreck or something. They get immediately flooded with different endorphins and things to keep them from feeling pain. So a person might get in a car wreck, they don't feel anything. They'll go to the ER and they're like, oh, I don't feel a thing. At first, that's going to wear off, but when it wears off, then things get bad. But what the technology that my pain relief technology does is it allows you to release those endorphins at your own rate. Okay. Not to overdo it. You're not going to get the big adrenaline rush, but it'll help you with pain through that same method. It affects those areas of the brain. But once again, like we're nothing but frequencies and energy. And even if you take a drug, a homeopathic remedy, okay, say I'm going to take passion flower. That's a good example. All passion flower does is change frequencies in my body, just like life frequencies Pro X8 or anything else. Except Pro X8 does it immediately. But any drug that you take is going to change your internal frequencies because that's all it can do. It can't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because all we are is energy and frequency. So if we alter the frequencies, then we have an effect. This is where pharmaceutical drugs are bad, and because they're chemical. Once again, when we're introducing things that are foreign to our bodies as humans, chemicals are foreign, just like handheld electrodes and electricity. We don't like that. We don't like RF energy. Our bodies don't enjoy that at all. So
Wi-Fi routers and all that.
right. So considering that, some drugs like passion flower, they'll change your frequencies to make certain things happen. And one of the good things about passion flower is I remember the VA had me on these alpha channel blockers for SVT, and they quit working, and they upped the dose. So they quit working. And they said, well, if you stop taking these, you could die. And I said, well, I don't want to take them. You just keep up the dose. And I want to try something else. So, I did some research and I found passion flower actually works like their alpha channel blockers. It changes the frequencies that regulate your heart rhythm. That's all it does. So when I say we're nothing but energy and frequencies, anything you do only alters the frequencies inside of you for healing. Or you can use it for bad things too. But in this case, we use it for good.
Right.
So what about all of the torrent of frequencies that we have been escalated into? I mean, now we have 5G, 6G phones, we've got Gwen towers, we've got tons of satellites beaming down on us. We have maybe the space fence and, just on and on. How can we not become inundated with all of those types of things? And how can we use like the software to offset that?
You can. When you're using sound frequencies in our audio range, in our own effective space, the ones we hear, the ones the humans accept, we can counteract a lot of those bad frequencies by putting good frequencies in us, like 741 hertz. Okay. Or if we're talking really low frequency ranges, 1.5 hertz, 360 hertz, King Solomon's frequency, healing frequency. We can run those frequencies and they counteract the frequencies that are we're being bombarded with. Now we know, and I discussed this before about how bad RF is for us, and with Robert there, he did the phone over somebody with the kinesiology. And that's a great example of what is good and what is bad for you. So
it just downregulates the mitochondria.
Absolutely. In your mitochondria energy, that's our energy. I mean, it actually produces a voltage. So we are nothing but, as Tesla put it, vibration and energy or frequency and energy. And life frequencies Pro lets you control all your frequencies. That's the point in one way or another, whether it's to get rid of cancer or just feel better through chakras,
Another thing we use the software for is for structuring. We make our own herbal tinctures, make our own colloidal silver things. And so I took a stainless steel table, like from kitchenware, and I mounted a tactile transducer under one of the shelves. And I put all the bottles after we fill them, and I'll structure them with, say it's liver gallbladder. I'll use liver gallbladder frequencies to add into the herbal biochemical effect. Now you're getting the energetic with it, and the body just accepts it so much.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really powerful. So we've been doing that, and I do orgonite with the polyester resin, and then it's in a liquid state. You put the hardener in. As it's curing, I'll put 528 and Schumann into it, and it creates the cymatic pattern in the liquid resin.
Uh-huh.
Here, as it hardens and locks that pattern into the resin.
All right. And
Yeah,
this is what I was talking about with Dr. Basuro Moto, the one that was doing all the stuff for,
right.
which is why, like I said, they did the structuring. And he did a lot of that, but he had to, in your case, you did it in a more modern sense. He had to actually freeze the
Right.
water and look at it into an ice cube before he could actually see it.
Right.
And you're doing the same thing through, polymers and things like that. So that's a whole different thing. But it's the same effect. And that's where your structuring comes in, your imprinting.
I was thinking it would be good to just keep certain frequencies on all the time, just to counter that. If you have this equipment or if you have the software and things, just, if you're not using it directly for, treating your body or somebody, just to have harmonious ones just to put out to counter a lot of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I had an app for that actually. It was a while back. That's it. So yeah, that's what that's for. If you just run those frequencies, it counteracts a lot of the ones that are going around. It's a good idea to have those frequencies running.
And what about like the nanobots and graphene and hydrogel and all this garbage we've got that's fairly new?
See in the blood.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on some of those nasty things?
Well, once again, we're being bombarded, whether it's through food. If we eat food and it's been processed and it has poisons in it.
And chemtrails too.
All it does, it changes your frequencies in your body. You just use frequencies to counteract whatever that does. And that's the same with graphene or anything else. So in Auto-Rife and Pro X8, there's a detox. It's a complete detox preset that covers graphene and a lot of the other stuff we get bombarded with. So
stuff is so new, we have to come up with the frequencies to counteract it as they bring it out, the new stuff.
Well, in a sense, you're right. But if we keep those healing frequencies just in the background, just running, like Carrie said, why shouldn't we run them all? Well, you should, and I think and I always go back to the Tibetan monks because they've done so many amazing things with it, with the levitation and levitating themselves and their mind control. And they've just been a standard, but they always constantly have frequencies. They're always humming or chanting. There's always something going on. And this is what keeps them so healthy. I mean, some of these monks, they don't even know how old they are. They know they're well over 100, but they just keep going. And there's this positive feeling, and they have learned to accept and avoid that. They're getting bombarded just like we are, even though they're in Tibet. I mean, they're not getting bombarded as bad as we are, and you're not going to see them walking around with cell phones.
Sure.
What they're doing with HARP and different energy things, it affects the whole world, the whole earth. So they get subjected to frequencies like that too. Remember, and it can be used for other things, not just I had a guy down south. He had brown recluse problem. This was my first software. This was years and years ago. And he got the software, had brown recluse as one of the presets in the software. And the point of it was to for a brown recluse bite, if you get bit by him, you get an ulcer. It's like, well, he didn't know that. He had a brown recluse problem that he couldn't get rid of. He's had exterminators, and they're just everywhere. They're just, and he got the software and he ran it through his big old hi-fi system, and he killed all the spiders.
Really, that's cool.
But but at first I'm going, wait a minute, how did he kill the spiders? This preset was made for the bite. So the conclusion it ended up being was it it resonated the cavity, the actual problem inside the spider, the venom. So it exploded in the spider.
Mhm.
So it killed the spider by resonating the poison in the spider. It was great, but I would have never thought about using it for that application.
Right.
And the guy says, "Oh wow, he emailed me and said this is great, and I killed all my spiders." And it's like, oh, and I'm going, how do you do that? You know, so you learn and you find out things as time goes on.
So you could take that and apply it to people that got the biowarfare jabs, the COVID jabs.
Yeah, well,
Venom peptides in those. I don't know if you're aware of that. 36 different venom peptides identified by geneticists in 3 different countries. And there was 20 snakes and 16 marine shellfish that they detected the synthetic venom peptides. So if we could have frequencies specific for those that could counteract all those venom peptides, because we're having to use other means of negating that, like nicotine gets the venom off the alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptors
right.
in the body, and that's affecting your heart and your breathing and all that stuff. So,
well, absolutely, and you bring up a good point. When I did the preset for the vaccination detox, there were so many considerations I had to take in there. I mean, it was causing fibrosis, just all Guillain-Barre, all these, or Guillain-Barre, whatever you want to say, all these problems. I was seeing people that were 100% healthy, all of a sudden they were in a wheelchair after the vaccination. And, I've actually known a couple of people. My son's business partner died after having the vaccination.
right.
But they did put a lot of stuff in there. And, that's a good point, that there are a lot of unknowns, and they try to keep it that way. But the main
about the AK muscle response testing, because the body will give you that feedback, and there's no guesswork involved. The body tells you exactly, yeah, this frequency, it made that weak muscle strong, and
that's where only your body knows, and that's good. Your muscle testing like that. That's why the sweep generator's in there, and then the K test at Pro X8, because you can sweep through a range of frequencies, and then they have, I have the hit button on there. So if you get a positive on a frequency, boom, hit, and then you turn that into a preset for that person.
Yeah.
You wipe out a whole slew of different problems in one run just by doing the sweep generator.
Is the sweep generator going to be in the life frequencies 10?
It will.
It will?
Yes. But this sweep generator is actually going to have a little variation, and that is it's going to have scalar waves.
Really?
So it'll be the first sweep generator to create 0-point energy. And the reason I'm doing that is basically for a more of a science benefit for people experimenting with 0-point energy. Because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of labs use life frequencies because it does things that other conventional function generators can't do. And with the putting scalar waves in the sweep generator, experimenters will be able to sweep through a range of frequencies to determine what frequencies might do different things with 0-point energy.
Cool.
And I have a couple of ideas for that myself, and that's going to be very interesting.
All right.
As far as generating free energy and power.
When is this upgrade going to be available?
Life Frequencies Pro 10, it's still under the process. There's still under testing. It's a whole new, I'm using an entirely different language. The other life frequencies were done in C++ in assembly. I'm using Delphi for this one. I've completely redesigned the audio. All of the
programming language.
Yeah, programming language. Yeah, and I've made a completely new audio engine generally, to specify, I should say, it's made for healing and this type of work, whether it's 0 point or other
Mhm.
energy. It's so like with Pro X8, you had manual, different settings for uh, modulation, things like that. Scalar. The main screen now have combined both of the Halder Clark presets in the Rife frequencies into one list. You won't see modulation anymore. You won't see scalar waves on the main page because the new waveform, which is a specific type pulsed waveform, is 171% more effective than anything out there right now. So, wow. And there's things like that I'm still running through on testing. It's going to be the last live frequencies I do. So, I want it to be very perfect. It has chat in it. So a lot of times people have questions. I'm thinking, wow, other live frequencies users, there's a lot of us, and they might want to go, hey, have you tried this frequency, or what does this frequency do? And they can share frequencies and ask questions about different things. So it has a built-in chat. And then, of course, like I said, the AI in that, I was going to say I stopped it beforehand, but I said, when you have AI do a diagnostic on you, it'll tell you what your problem is. Highly accurate, of course, and it'll tell you the possible parasites.
I like that feature.
That might be the underlying cause. But here's what else it will do, and it does. It will also determine the frequencies you need to fix your problem. So you can go in and enter those frequencies in the manual section of Pro 10. And so you have the AI calculated frequencies, you have the original presets, you have things that you could there's just no way anybody could access before. So it's pretty amazing.
So it covers a lot. Everything
you can do with frequencies. I hope that this will be it.
Okay. And is the price going to be similar?
It's going to be a little more. It's not going to be for resale like Pro X8, which is why I try to tell people, look, if you're going to buy Pro X8, because once this is released, Pro X8 won't be available anymore. So, and it's also transferable though. So if you get a new computer, you can deactivate it on one, and it'll install on two computers.
And then will there be an upgrade for previous?
Absolutely. Users? I wouldn't let my Pro X8 people go, oh wow. No, there'll be an upgrade for that.
Next year, try it. Exciting. Tell us a little bit about algorithms, if you would, for the listeners that don't understand what that means, because that's involved in the programming of the waveforms and all that, right?
Sure. Well, an algorithm, for instance, there's several algorithms. Anything that has something to do with math, I can say, well, that's an algorithm that does this. Like a TBSW, there's an algorithm, there's a math equation that says, okay, I'm going to put a base frequency of something in the audio range, something I can hear. That's going to be the base frequency. But there's other frequencies that are too low for a human to hear. But those frequencies are useful. Like I said, Abraham's universal healing is 1.5 hertz. Sleep frequencies, you'd never hear that. In fact, you can't get headphones that are going to go that lower. But TBSW makes it possible to hear those. So there's an algorithm in there that says when you put in your left beat and your right beat, you can say, okay, 0.4 hertz, 0.4 hertz in the left beat, 0.3 hertz in the right beat. The algorithm actually calculates what it needs to do so you can hear those frequencies.
So that would be the beat frequency that's created.
Right.
Like that. Okay.
So that's an algorithm. Converting Halder Clark frequencies to Rife audio. Halder Clark frequencies were mostly in the RF range.
Megahertz.
Right. Yeah, megahertz. So in this
little conversion tool.
Yes.
I like the conversion tool you have.
Right. So that's a conversion tool to convert RF frequencies down to a usable, safe range that's useful for us. So the Halter Clark frequencies were all converted, and I used three phases, three stages. Now that's another algorithm, more math. Okay,
Mhm.
Euler's constant is one of them. It goes through cycles, takes the original frequency, brings it to a lower frequency in the audio range through Euler's constant, okay, which is known to keep the original base purpose alive. So if it's a healthy frequency, it's going to convert it to the audio range. And after I do Euler's constant, then I run it through two more cycles at different harmonic
Hmm.
levels. So a third harmonic and then a second harmonic. So it actually goes through three phases to get to what it is before it's in life frequencies Pro XA or life frequencies Pro 10.
So basically, to simplify it, you're taking a megahertz and you're taking subharmonics of that frequency down into the audible range.
Right. So
Okay,
that would be considered an algorithm there too.
I gotcha. Cool.
Hmm.
It's cool. You got the brain to figure all that out.
Oh, I don't know.
Huh.
It's just patience.
Yeah. So, do you have any other questions, Carrie?
How about any frequencies to eliminate evil?
Well, actually, I
Or
think
would just be promoting?
528. Love.
no, I think there's a combination of frequencies that distract evil. And I mean, if you want to know what they are, I think you just drive through Washington D.C. and with a megaphone start playing frequencies with 432 hertz in combination with 528. I mean, those frequencies are they tend to um, dispel lower energy beings or that sort of thing.
You know,
There's
we
also
on that topic, we have a hydrophone underwater speaker we put in our swimming pool.
oh
We can
yeah,
play frequencies. You can treat a whole group of people at once that way, right?
oh yeah, that's
The
great.
water, and we're all water. So it's conducting, and then they're out in the sun, they're grounded electrically, so it's very healing. But we sometimes leave it on, and that sound travels. And we have some neighbors that are pretty noisy, barking dogs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's made this change locally.
In the neighborhood.
Oh wow, that's
Wild. And it's
we need
not that
to do that
loud.
worldwide, right? We need to get everybody doing these frequencies worldwide and change everything.
That's what I was thinking. Like if we could play something all the time, or if you have a pool, or if you live by a body of water, if we can put that in something and then have it affect water all over the earth or in your area, or then, water is recycled and it
Why not?
that memory of the water, and we can be loving and treating the water, which is part of the whole cycle, which is us.
Right. Well,
Kind of
here
like my thoughts with it.
I think we're going back to the 5 times more efficient in water than in air. Throw a big speaker in the ocean,
Mhm.
That's what
positive frequencies through it, and there you go.
that's what we when we were living on the canal right on the Gulf. That's where we got that idea, was to put that there, and we were thinking, this can almost go out to most of the world by treating just this little body, this little spot here, and then why not anywhere where you live, any body of water, because that's going to be in the evaporation cycle, taken up by clouds, and maybe helping to rectify these horrible cloud creature things that are being sprayed and manipulated. And it's like, we can't stop loving that, but we can, it's like a deformed being or something. It's like, just because it's deformed, you can't deny your love, but we, can change that the way, it's like, man, maybe we can love that cloud differently and then have it change back to a regular cloud instead of these weird chemical
Absolutely.
clouds.
Well, there has been experiments on that too, where where
Really?
certain people have focused on a cloud to make it change shapes and different things like that, and it works.
Mhm.
And there's I can't even remember what they call uh, there's a thing that they used to use. It was basically you could use a PVC pipe and stick it in some quartz crystal and sand, and it's called a cloud buster,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
Yeah, with the
Right.
resin.
Right.
creates
Yeah,
clouds.
copper
So,
pipes.
I mean, what about taking that and putting frequencies through that and putting it in the atmosphere? I'm always thinking this crazy stuff.
We
So
do too.
Yeah.
And some of these little resonate these like Bobby makes some of these little designs, we put this, these are just organized, just resin poured in different molds, and this one just has a geometric, sacred geometry, but
right,
it's kept this frequency. This has got the 528 and the Schumann resonance. So, these can be maybe, I don't know, put in different places, just as that resonance. And then if there's more frequencies that can resonate all of them, if they're all around the planet, then, that frequency, like from that we're talking about, can just start on resonating all of them. Mine,
right, exactly.
yours, the one in England, the one in South Africa.
Well,
That,
that's why I appreciate Robert for he does things like, okay, he's using live frequencies the way it was intended to be used. He's taking it and saying, "Hey, what if I do this? What if I do this?" He's using it for good,
Hmm.
and that's the point and the purpose of live frequencies. Initially, like I said, it was to help people get rid of cancer, which it's done a very good job of over the years.
Hmm.
Under the radar, but everybody has access to it. You don't need to be a doctor. You don't, no medical experience. You can do it at home.
Your
And
body is the real doctor.
your body is a real doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
that's
right.
everybody can take this type of the software and use it for totally selfish purposes for their own body and their own family, or they can expand out to do, once you kind of solve those problems, then you're looking for other things to do once you don't have the immediate tension of the crisis, the healthcare crisis or pain.
you're
uh,
right.
then it frees up your mind and psyche to start thinking of other ways to help the whole planet.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's the problem with healing. Usually, when you have a flu or a cancer or something like that, the stress alone, and I mean, that is a big deterrent for healing. You have to get rid of those problems in order to heal, right? So that's why life frequencies has things like the solfeggio frequencies, TBSW chakras, because we're energy. And if those things help your energy grow, then it's going to help you heal.
And we're getting like, I think, starting to understand that, most people are starting to understand that it's not all about pharmaceuticals. And then people that are on the more natural side, it's like we're not using natural things allopathically, but it's more than just taking a substance, a pill, an herb, a vitamin, like you said, those are all frequencies. So why don't we just go direct to the source?
That's what it does.
It's just,
Treat the cause instead of
going right to the source. It's like, well, the frequency itself. And like, you were mentioning before, monks and different learned individuals are always humming, saying sacred sounds, filling the air with a sacred sound, not a discordant noise that's going to be disruptive.
Mhm.
I know I'm really hypersensitive to a lot of these things, and like you were mentioning, like the chemical plant that killed the chickens. I mean, the hum of air conditioner, whatever those things are set that sit outside, and the modules,
Oh, yeah.
and then just refrigerators, fans. There's just a lot of those types of things that either cause a disruption or disharmony, or it blends with something else, and I'm like, what is that? It's like, I gotta go stop that. And then once like something shuts off, I'm like,
Well, you're right.
my nervous system relaxes.
Well, you're right. And there's more stories about that. And one specific to what you're just bringing up, an air conditioning system. They had an air conditioning system in an office, and all of a sudden, the office workers, they put in a new system. The office workers started getting sick.
I know, I can imagine.
But I mean, they started also getting psychotic symptoms.
Hmm.
Okay. And what they had found with this particular case was this is easy to find. They knew they put in this happened after the new AC was installed. So there was no chemicals, nothing weird like that coming from it. So it had to be the sound. And it was 19 hertz. It's the same sound that tigers used to make other animals paralyzed.
I think when you use this, I was talking about playing in through the frequencies through the water in the pool or in the canal. I think when you couple it with water like that, it'll connect with through the water vapor in the air.
That's what I was feeling.
It's just it'll spread quickly, and you can extend the effective range of the effectiveness of that. Yeah, pretty cool.
So treating ourselves and then like just treating your neighborhood, your home space. And if everybody did that, I mean, that would be huge. Like if you're not treating yourself or somebody, tithe to the universe and at least have it on for an hour or something and let those frequencies roll out to the world. Yeah.
Another thing we're using your software for, I'm working on a project with creating a recliner chair with transducers in it, headphones, and this goes inside of a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So you'd be under 2 atmospheres of pure oxygen with the frequencies, with infrared light, electrically grounded, all inside this little capsule. Wow. So there's going to be in Clearwater, there's going to be a facility where they're going to have 4 chambers with these chairs in them, and they're going to have an infusion center. They're going to have IV, chelation, glutathione, vitamin C, whatever IVs, and all the recliners are going to have probably 4 of them there, and the place is going to be called Benjamin Button's Rejuvenation Station.
Benjamin Button.
See the movie?
Yes.
So it's a rejuvenation clinic, and they're going to be treating traumatic brain injuries and things. So it's kind of exciting to be in the ground level of that.
And then we're looking at that too for some home use too, so people can have a comfortable position to have themselves treated with frequencies.
Another thing would be dental chairs. You're sitting in the dentist chair.
Under stress.
Right.
Have the frequencies coming through the chair, headphones. You could, I think.
That's been done before, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of surgeons tried an earlier version of the software for MRSA, and it can get rid of MRSA. I have a specific set that will get rid of MRSA.
Cool.
They were using it in the operating room. Cool. So that was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of uses for it. And there's 2 things. Now you mentioned brain damage. There's a preset called stroke follow-up that's very powerful.
Use that.
Yeah, it's very powerful for a lot of different things. And as Carrie mentioned, there's some other things out there that are kind of crazy. And we don't know what's happening. But there's a preset called the RNA virus preset. That covers a lot of the things that have been put out there.
With the mRNA stuff?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Cool.
The RNA virus preset is another thing that really, it's broad and it covers a lot of the problems caused by it.
Cool.
Good.
So, well, it sure has helped us a lot, helping other people, and helped ourselves. We treat ourselves too. And
I'm like, I should do more with myself, but I'm like the TV technician in the neighborhood. Everybody's TV works, but his, because
right, the mechanic's car.
I don't have time to do work on myself, but I should, But I more and more I do. So
well, we're looking at trying to make the same, make it comfortable and easy for people.
Right. And that's the important part about it. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do with the new Pro 10. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for people to use,
Mhm.
powerful than previous versions.
Workhorse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing, after you do this for so long, you get so many questions and you start getting patterns like, maybe what if I took instead of adding more stuff and making it, do more than it does, I'm trying to actually detract and make,
Streamline.
right, make it more powerful with less buttons.
Right. Right. Well, we appreciate you and what you've done and all the work that you've put in this and all your research. Takes people like you to help bring this to the foreground so other people can make use of it and put it in the world and spread it around. We all have different parts of our job
Right.
to do
That's
with
why
this.
I appreciate you too, because you're doing things with it that it's meant to be done. This is
Yeah.
why it's out there, so you can go, oh, hey, I have this, I can try this. And you're taking it to levels that it's great what you're
Yeah,
doing.
cool.
Appreciate it very
Well,
much.
we're running out of time, but where can people find you on the internet? How can they
Okay,
find your
it's
software?
bztronics.com. And there's links there to all the various softwares and ZX apps, which run on any device. And
Those are
you'll,
cool. I like those. You put them on your phone or whatever, and then
yeah,
we
put
always
my,
tell people to put the phone in airplane mode while you're using it. So you're
right.
not slamming them with microwaves during that. But yeah, because everybody's got that. They could have that carrying it with them. Like, oh, we're going to treat someone.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can be anywhere and use it, stressed out about it, like you say, a flight, just, put that on and relax.
Oh, all right.
Awesome.
bztronics.com. That's where it's at.
So, like Carrie said, we appreciate you and what you're doing and what you've done. And we sure benefit from it and all of our patients.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on here with you. It's been fun.
Awesome.
All right. So thanks again for sharing all this information and look forward to that new program that's coming out.
Thank you, Robert.
All right. Keep
Thank
the light
you.
shining.
Namaste.